So we wanted to solve those. My wife Aline designed a way of doing it.
Great, great. So we're going to hear more about that in a bit. But I know for all of us customers and for everyone that's attending, there's such a buzz around organic, right? We hear it all the time. As a consumer myself, it really confuses me. So before we deep dive and pick Richard's brain about debunking or demystifying organic, just a quick poll to start seeing what all of you think about organic. Sorry, Richard, you can't see the poll, but you'll be able to see the results.
I can see it, yep.
Oh, you can? Oh, great. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to just participate in this poll. Great. So we seem to have a mixed response. I think we see that people somewhat understand the benefits for organic and the high price point, but still aren't clear about, about the entire concept entirely. I would also vote that. I also somewhat understand it. You too, Richard? Okay. And then a lot of people think it's a fact that organic is better. So that's great. So I think now I'm going to throw it back at you, Richard. What do you think? Is organic better, and does it justify the high price point?
Well, I guess, look, the reason that we're all in the conversation today, and I'm really keen to hear lots of inputs from everyone who's in the session. I'm sure that everyone has their own view of it. Everyone has their own opinion, even if you're not very confident in your level of knowledge. This is the whole thing, is that there is so much hype. There's so much by way of certifications and standards. And then on the other side, you've got so much around marketing and logos. And at the end of it, okay, we, the simple consumer, we know what we personally, individually mean or are looking for when we're kind of thinking about organic. So we have some sort of definition ourselves. How well that matches with how a marketing department for, like a global cosmetics company or a farmer, the way that they are producing dairy products, or how well all that matches is really anyone's guess, and it's almost unknowable. And so what we're trying to do, what my own journey around kind of the organic component of life is trying to figure out what is important to me, to us, to our family, and then go looking for ways to be able to achieve that. And around kind of the products that we can buy, whether it's food or clothes or whatever else it is, sometimes we get information that can help us, and sometimes we get so much information, it's too much, and it actually just confuses us. So this is, one of the things that I really like, Namrata, about the Shift Eco concept and the platform is it's finding a way to make it simple and easy for people to be able to do something that is of importance to them. The worst you can do is be kind of is paralysis by analysis. I don't know if you've heard that. It's just too much information, and you don't know what to do. Right. This is one of the things around organics at the moment where we're kind of stuck, and I don't think there's a straightforward answer about is organic better or not. Right. It's different for everybody, right? It depends what you're looking for.
Sure. So let's deep dive into organic food more specifically, because that's the line that you're in. And let's try and understand, is organic food really better for health?
So I think from a health perspective, it definitely is. the research is a little inconclusive about whether organically produced food has more nutritional value.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately, just kind of from a health perspective, there's a quote that I've read, which really sums it up for me: is eat less poison. Right? That's got to be good for you. No matter anything else, just try and eat less of the bad stuff. And organic produced food does help you to consume fewer of certain types of chemicals. Now, one of the things that we do have to get our head around, actually, because this was, I did a bit of a double take when I first came across this, because my belief up to a certain point had been organic means chemical free.
Right.
And actually not what organic actually means. Organic means, and there's so many different kind of global or national accrediting bodies that all have slight differences, but they generally agree on a few things. So for a product or an ingredient to be certified as organic, there are certain things that have to be complied with. So, for example, no synthetic chemicals.
Right.
But that doesn't mean no. It means no synthetic chemicals. So, okay, that's good. If the choice is synthetic chemicals kind of going into the food that our kids eat, or having it no synthetic chemicals, I'll go for no synthetic chemicals. Thanks. If I have an option of no chemicals at all, then obviously I'm happy. But that's not necessarily what you get from organic. Sometimes yes, but also sometimes no. So there's a list of allowable and prohibited substances that plants and soil and so on can be treated with perfectly legally, and it's all within safe limits. So we're not talking about unsafe levels of synthetic chemicals.
Right.
But we're talking about, do you want to consume those or not? And so it's it comes down to, for me, again, just try and keep it simple. Eat fewer chemicals, consume fewer chemicals, however you're going to do that.
Right. So, I mean, definitely in eating lesser chemicals has to be better for health. However, there's a food security crisis in the world, right? With the rising populations, you need more food, and that's the reason why there have been these chemicals added, so that it can match the requirements of the population. So
that's right.
Is organic even scalable?
I think that's a very good question. You're absolutely right, Namrata. There's a reason why all of the production techniques that perhaps sometimes we don't like, there's a reason why they're there. They didn't just appear out of nowhere because someone thought it'd be a good idea. It's to drive efficiency and to reduce cost, and to allow increased scale. And those techniques started appearing before we had 7.8 billion of us roaming around on the planet. So it's becoming more an issue. Organically produced food, because of certain constraints, can take more resources. I would say not necessarily. Again, it depends how it's done. Because, you say within how, let's say, food is produced organically, there's a whole range of ways of doing it. Some that are pretty close to traditional farming techniques, but just avoid using prohibited substances. Okay, that's good. And then you go all the other way to newer approaches to farming, such as hydroponics, aquaponics, or whatever, that are a completely different way of doing it, and actually do solve some of the issues that that are out there.
Right.
But is it scalable? Well, let's put it this way: hydroponics is highly scalable. It allows things like vertical farming. I'm sure lots of people in the session today have heard and read about the rise of vertical farming in urban areas, and a lot around the UAE, which is fantastic. You see a lot of especially government-supported initiatives to help the UAE become more self-sufficient in food production. So the UAE imports up to 21,000 tons a day, every day, of fresh food and vegetables. So think about the environmental cost that comes with that, the amount of packaging, the amount of diesel that goes into transportation from wherever they've been transported. You see things coming from a long way from here, and you know, it has a cost. To be honest, I think a lot of people are starting to get a little bit sick of food that has more air miles than we do. You know, you think, wow, okay, maybe we can look for a better way. And I'm really pleased that the government in the UAE is really driving on that. They're putting a lot of resources into it, supporting a lot of kind of private startup organizations, particularly, mainly at a commercial scale, to feed into the kind of the food retail chain for supermarkets and so on. So that's got to be a good thing. That's definitely a good step.
Right. So actually you raised a really interesting point. So local produce versus imported organic produce. Local produce that doesn't necessarily have to be organic, just to add, which one is better and why?
Oh, Namrata, you got to stop asking me these questions that don't have.
Richard, my job.
Wow. Okay, so this is a perfect example of why so many people struggle with how we access food and what we're prepared to put into our bodies and our kids' bodies. You know. Because neither of those two is by any means a great outcome. So locally produced food has a lot of benefits in terms of it's a short logistics chain. So typically the food has been, let's say if it's plants, it's been harvested more recently than if it's come from Europe or somewhere else where plants are kind of treated in cold storage and chemically and so on. And so they can arrive a month later, still looking and feeling and kind of tasting fresh, but they've lost a lot of nutrition from the moment that they were plucked from the ground. And so some types of spinach, for example, lose 90% of their nutritional value within 24 hours. So it looks nice, and you think that you're eating something that's got to be healthy for you. I mean, it's, you know, it's better than fast food for sure, but you're still not getting the benefit that you think. And no one has a lab at home to be able to test this stuff. You just take it for granted. If it's salad, it must be good for me, right? But then again, often we have no idea about how locally produced food is actually produced. And so there could be any number of let's say things we'd rather not see that go to make the food that we get it, you know, we go to the shop, we buy it and we put it on the table at home. We feel good for our family. We're doing good for the environment. We're doing good for the local economy.
Right.
And sometimes some things might be happening that we have no visibility, no way of knowing about, that actually we might not be so thrilled about. But here's the other thing. I don't know how many people, you know, in our session right now have had the same experience as I have when you go to a supermarket and they've got, you know, all sorts of organic food shipped in from everywhere, and you see fruits and vegetables individually wrapped in plastic. I'm talking about a huge tray, a vast area full of eggplants, every single one wrapped in its own plastic. And I'm thinking, what is going through people's mind when you go to all the effort of growing food organically and all so that you can put a logo on it, and then somewhere along the way someone sticks it in a plastic wrapper, and you just think, seriously, that it just undoes so much of the good work. So coming back to your question, which of those is better? I think you can only decide what you feel you are trying to achieve in terms of health and in terms of let's say, reducing negative impact on the environment. And you know, we can go through some of my ideas about how to get to that point a little bit later on.
Right.
But I also want to question: are those the only two options?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the rise of the kind of trend around the world for people wanting to get back and grow some food themselves is because people don't like only having those two options.
That's an excellent point.
And you know, a third of households in the US now grow their own food somehow. It might just be a little tomato plant in a pot somewhere or other. Fantastic. You know, whatever people can do. Growing at home actually does solve a lot of the problems about not knowing how something has been produced, and also making sure that it doesn't come wrapped in plastic. It hasn't, you know, been in a container on a ship for 3 weeks coming from some far-flung place. So that's, I think, one of the key drivers behind that as a huge global trend.
Right. So actually, that's a really interesting point. And I want to launch this other poll for everyone attending to start seeing how many people are actually growing their own herbs or vegetables at home. So I guess the poll is live now. So I'll give it about 30 seconds for everyone to fill in. Richard, this time you can vote too if you like.
Oh, great.
Wow, a lot of people are going for what are supermarkets for. I like that. Okay, interesting. So for the first question about how many people grow herbs or vegetables at home, majority of people seem to be growing some, but find it hard to grow all sorts, which is absolutely fair. And then there's another lot which says, no, I don't. I mean, I guess with all our busy lives, not everyone has the inclination to grow their own. So I think it's more of a response of going to supermarkets or growing a few herbs at home, but not everyone's actively growing, though we have 2 participants that are actually growing at home, which is great. And then the second part is about hydroponics and how many people know of hydroponics and how you can use them at home. So there are a lot of people who have no idea about hydroponics. So Richard, I'm going to pick your brain on that one. And there are some who know a lot about it and some in the middle. So let's start with the hydroponics part. What is hydroponics, Richard? And why do you think it's better?
Okay, so hydroponics is a method of growing where instead of planting in soil, they grow in water. So there is no soil involved. There are there are actually 7 different kind of specific techniques of how it's done. But essentially what you're doing is you put nutrients that plants would otherwise get from the soil. They would pull it from the soil. The roots have to go searching for it. They get it from the soil. You put the nutrients in the water and you send the water to the roots. So that's one of the reasons why growing hydroponically produces much faster growth, so 3 to 4 times faster than traditional growing techniques. It uses 90% less water because it's a closed system, so water doesn't drain away. The water stays there, recirculated, and then you just top up the water every now and then, and you top up the fertilizer every now and then. If you're growing indoors, you have to provide lighting. We can talk about that later. But that's how hydroponics works. Brings clearly some benefits. So the first one is it's kind of hard to grow things outside here year round, like food year round. Not just us here. You go to other places of the world, their problem is in winter. And so hydroponics means you can control the growing development stages. You can time it as you want. So you can grow hydroponically outdoors in like in a little kind of hothouse type thing. So you can do that year round. You can also grow hydroponically indoors, which actually is a game changer if you can solve some of the issues around, okay, how much space does it require and how are we going to provide lighting and so on.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm a huge believer in the value of hydroponics, not as the answer to everything. And I'm not saying by any means that growing via other methods is bad or whatever. If people are growing food at home, fantastic. I think that's brilliant. I love to see people who are growing herbs. Like, there's nothing like going to your little herb garden, no matter how it's grown, and you just get some basil, boom. 30 seconds later, you've sprinkled it on your pizza, or you put the rocket into your pasta, not pasta, your salad, and you can't get fresher. You know, I always think from pot plant to plate in 60 seconds. You just don't get better than that. And for me, really doesn't matter how you do that. Do whatever works for you. You know, people are busy, and it is quite a commitment of time to grow food, because you're kind of relying on, you're expected to be able to eat it at some stage, right? So if you don't get to that point, it's kind of been a wasted effort, which is a real shame. So it does take normally a little bit of time. Some people feel that they, you know, you got some people have a green thumb, they can make anything grow anywhere. And you get other people who can even kill weeds, and you know, and I'm probably in the latter group. I don't really know the specific details about how to grow this in what soil and what time of year should you plant that. And you know, what I'm in it for is we want to grow fresh, healthy food for our family in a way that has minimal impact on the environment. So that's our outcome for us. You know, a home garden is, from what we can see, is one of the best ways of doing that. And if you can solve some of those questions around how much time does it take, how much knowledge does it take, how much space does it take, then you know you're in with a really good option there. It's not the right option for everyone, but what it can do, it can be a game changer in terms of giving people an opportunity to actually start growing more at home.
Right. That's really interesting, Richard. I've heard a lot about hydroponics, but for all the cynics out there, a lot of people can argue that hydroponically grown plants are also not natural, right? Because you have a different way of injecting the nutrients. How healthy are hydroponically grown plants versus naturally grown plants?
There is no discernible difference between plants that are grown hydroponically and plants that are grown in soil. There are research studies that show there's a little bit more nutrition this way, but then another study shows there's a little bit more nutrition that way. The overall outcome conclusion is that there's no clear distinction between the two. And when you go to the supermarket and buy your food, you typically don't know how it's grown. A lot of tomatoes, so especially a lot of the tomatoes that we get here in the UAE are hydroponically grown. And you know what? Sometimes I taste some of those and I go, yeah, it's okay. Not as nice as when I grow it at home. Other times you just think, wow, that's beautiful tasting piece of food. But in terms of the quality of the food, again, from a nutritional perspective, there isn't really any difference. But you know what, for me, one of the things that I feel very reassured about is from the moment that I put a seed in a pod in a hydroponics unit until the moment that it's ready for our plate, I haven't had to put a single chemical or any sort of substance on it, because we're growing it inside. There's no pest, there's nothing in the soil. There's no pests kind of flying in. So we haven't had to treat it with anything. Our kids ask us if it's okay to go up to our hydroponic, our home garden, which is up on the wall, and if they can have a piece of kale.
Nice.
Right now, I don't even know what kale was until a couple of years ago. But my boys, who are 5 and 4, they love going up to mummy and daddy's project, and they just literally pull a leaf off and just start chewing on it. And I'm thinking, you know, the healthy eating habits that they are learning at such an early age. They're not asking for crisps. They're not asking for, you know, sweet things, you know, all in you know, decent quantities. But for them, a good snack is go and get something off the project and kind of munch on a leaf for a little bit. And I mean, that's you know, that's priceless from a parent's perspective.
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
They're not having chips, Richard. Well done.
No, I hide them.
So Richard, you make it sound so easy. It sounds really like having a hydroponic system at home sounds easy. Is there something we're missing? What are the limitations that come with it? What are the nuances? Because it seems too straightforward to be true.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I say, it's a commitment. You've got to, growing a garden anywhere, any way requires a commitment, and so you've got to be clear in yourself that you are going to commit to it. It's not something where you do something once and that's it, right? Now, one of the things about hydroponics is it normally does take a little bit of work, because the plants can only get their nutrients essentially from you, right? So you've got to be disciplined. You've got, in other words, you can't just skip a top up of nutrients, because what are the plants going to do? You'd see the impact. There's often, well, most of the time there is a little bit of measuring and mixing of nutrients to go in. It's, you know, it's easy enough to learn, but honestly, a lot of people don't have the time or often even the inclination to do that. And so these were some of the things that we were thinking about. As it was my wife Aline, who she was designing. She's the inventor of the Hydro Art Pod. She was thinking, as a working mum of 2 kids, who wants to provide healthy food for the family and minimize the impact on the environment, how would this actually work? It can't be something that takes a lot of time. It can't be something that takes a lot of knowledge. So she designed it in a way that it takes actually almost no time, because it's fully automated. It takes no knowledge, because the device tells you, it's like a personal growing assistant. It tells you when you need to do something. And essentially, there's only 2 things that you would need to do, and they're both very simple. One is add water, okay, put some water in. The other one is add in a NutrioPod. So it's a pre-mixed soluble sachet, you know, like you put into a dishwasher or a washing machine. You don't have to kind of measure how much is it. You just throw a pod in. And that's what we've done here, because honestly, who has time to go measuring 10 mils of phosphorus and 5 mils of nitrogen? No one's got time for that. We're just all too busy. So when you get a notification in your app, it says throw in a NutrioPod, then you put it in and you're done. And the app will tell you the next time you need to do something. And in the meantime, it just gets on, and your plants just grow by themselves. So that's, you know, you've got to solve some of these problems. Space is another one. So growing food of anywhere, anyhow, takes an amount of space, obviously. Normally, when plants are grown, they're grown horizontally. That's kind of how the ground works, right? And so that's how a lot of other growing techniques have developed. But the good thing with hydroponics is you can pump water vertically, which means you can actually have vertical growing systems. I mentioned before about vertical farming, which
Right.
is just massively space efficient. And so you see these, you see in the media and so on, you see videos and photos of these huge, they're like 10-meter high, massive vertical farms,
Right.
all brimming with fantastic vegetables and fruit and so on, which is I mean, that's just awesome. At a commercial scale, the thing is, whilst all that effort is going on at a commercial level, so Aline and I were thinking, yeah, but what if every home could also become a little bit more self-sufficient
Right.
in the way they get their food? But
Right.
most people don't have a lot of space for an indoor garden that is the size of like a pool table or something. Most people don't have room for that. But you put it up on the wall.
Right.
If you got room, if you can hang a picture,
Right.
you can garden, and then that opens it up to basically any living space, any working space. Any company could have kind of vertical gardens up on the walls. Schools, great project for school kids to be able to grow some of their own food and watch it. They'd have the similar experience as my boys did, where they plant the food, they watch it grow, and then they're all about eating it. And that's a pretty good, cycle to reinforce. So you do have to solve some of these issues for
Right.
it to be, I think it's got to be easy. It's like I said with the Shift Eco platform.
Right.
It's simple and it makes it easy for people. And it doesn't matter whether you're going outside, inside, soil, hydroponic, it doesn't matter. It's got to be simple and easy,
Right.
because if we had the time and the knowledge and the resources to do, a more complicated version of growing our food, we would already be farmers. But we've got other things to do. We've got jobs, we've got families to look after. Maybe we've got kids to, homeschool, whatever. So simple and easy is the thing. And, this is a huge growth area in terms of products coming into market over the last 5 or more years. So quite a lot of us will have seen kind of kitchen countertop herb gardens. They've got their own little lights sometimes, and they look fantastic. Looks great, and I love those. But like I said, however people can grow more,
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. That's fantastic. What we found with our family is that being able to grow 3 or 6 kind of herb plants is a start, but actually we need more than that. That doesn't help us make a salad. It helps us garnish a salad, and it's a good start, but doesn't actually kind of break the cycle. Doesn't really change the equation in terms of now we no longer need to go and buy leafy greens, spinach, kale, lettuce, tomatoes, bell peppers, chilies, a whole lot of things.
Right.
If you can grow them at home, you don't
Right.
need to go and buy them from retail, which means that if enough people are doing that, then the kind of the system that generates all that eventually adjusts to the change in demand.
Right.
And again, if enough people kind of join the movement, that's our hashtag, join the movement, you get enough people doing it, and together we make a big difference. Where 1 or 2 or 100 of us acting alone doesn't make a big difference. You get enough people doing it, and actually this is how change happens.
Definitely. And I think in Shift Eco, we always say small shifts, big impact. And I think that goes to that same ethos. It sounds great. Sorry?
Every little bit helps.
Yes, absolutely. So hydroponics by itself sounds great, but I think one big concern that as a consumer, a lot of people do have is the high upfront investment. in the hydroponics unit, especially at home. I've never used a hydroponic system before. Spending, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 dirhams for it sounds very intimidating. So as a consumer, how do I make that cost benefit analysis? Are there any tips you can give for that?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. If you're going to grow hydroponically, you've got to have some equipment for it. How much you spend on that is entirely up to you. So, in fact, the way that my wife started was she went to a hardware store and bought some PVC tubes and a cheap little water pump. And so the first version, you know, I don't know, it probably cost us about 100 dirhams or so to come up with something. It wasn't great because it was kind of version one, right? But you can do it yourself at home pretty easily, and that's a pretty good way to start, to kind of test it out and see. Like, there's nothing like seeing your first plants that where you've seeded them, actually seeing them start to grow, and that gives you a bit of confidence and a bit of maybe a bit more momentum to then say, okay, right, well, you know what, now I need to perhaps do it a bit bigger. You can go up to kind of fully automated devices. Ours is a fully automated device because we feel giving people a device that can allow them to grow, but making them do a lot of work in order to do that. I think a lot of people just sort of lose touch with it after a while. You end up, oh yeah, it's a bit like, you buy I don't know, you buy an exercise bike or something. For sure, you're definitely going to work out every single day, and for the first week you do, and then after that, kind of get a bit busy, and 5 years later, you get it out of storage and you sell it. That's not changing the equation around healthy food and minimizing the impact on the environment. So it's got to be something that fits in with people's lifestyle. But also, I think it's important to remember, if you want to start growing anything anywhere, well, you need things to grow it in. So you need pots. Maybe you've got growing pots. Awesome. You need potting soil. You need to still provide nutrition for the soil. You need to kind of buy the seeds. If you decide that actually growing is not kind of quite the right thing for you, or if it feels too big a hurdle to get started, then you keep going back to a supermarket where you're still spending the money. But I guess the thing is, when you're growing at home, you make an upfront investment, and then all you need to do after that is just keep buying seeds and keep buying a little bit of nutrients every now and then. And the rest of it just kind of keeps going. So it's actually, once you get going, it's very cost effective. So, but it also depends, your return on investment point depends on how much you spend on food. So if you spend, let's say 12 dirhams a day on fresh fruit and vegetables for your family, then with our product, well, let's put it this way: with hydroponics, typically you would see a return on investment by the end of the first year. For us, it's a little bit less than that. It's about 10 months for our product. And again, remember, the yield and the speed that your food grows is pretty awesome.
Right. So that sounds great. But I want to go back a little bit to the organic aspect, right? As a consumer, what I find is that there's a lot of greenwashing, wherein you find people calling things organic and charging a high price point. I'll give you a small personal example. I remember going to the food store and looking at organic pasta, and it was double the cost of regular pasta. And I'm thinking in my head, why is the price so different? And what are the benefits I have? So to me, it appears like greenwashing, like I'm being manipulated to pay more money because of the word organic. So what advice do you have for us as consumers to be careful of when we are dealing with greenwashing?
Mm. It's annoying, isn't it, that that there's almost nothing against anyone who works in marketing, but the marketing side of it is kind of confused the issue a little bit, even though there are so many different standards. So there are, even just in Australia, there are 7 different certifying institutions for organic produce. You just think, I can't get my head around all those logos and what it means. I think there are 2 reasons why organic products are more expensive than non-organic products. One is there is genuinely a higher cost in the production of those. And you know what, look, that's fair. If you're going to go and get your produce from a local farm, and you know that farmer uses quite traditional, environmental friendly, you know, then you're prepared to pay a bit more for that. And that's fair enough. That's your call, right? But the second reason why it's more expensive is because companies can get away with charging more for it. That price premium is because it's not just a financial decision about, okay, I want to get the cheapest food that I can.
Yeah.
It's much more of a holistic decision that we make. It's not just a food decision, it is a family decision, it is a lifestyle decision, it is a decision that each of us makes with not just ourselves and our family in mind, but kind of like future generations, right? So you get people who are deeply committed to preserving, repairing, protecting the environment, for example. They make personal buying decisions in the hope that if enough people are doing that, then that will have a kind of like a regional, maybe even a global impact.
Right.
And so companies actually find it pretty easy to tap into that part of our goodwill. And I mean, our brain is made for marketing departments to, you know, to do their thing with us. That's just how we work. And it's really up to us, I think, as individual consumers to decide, okay, well, what do we really think is important? So, you know, even look at how we define what organic, what it actually means. I put it into 3 different categories. So the first one was the original philosophical movement around being organic, living organically, about getting back to more natural ways of producing food, doing no harm to nature, you know, managing the whole biological ecosystem, not just about kind of the food, but about the soil and the streams and the rivers and the oceans and how it's all connected, right? So those people who really feel strongly in that sense, for them, it's effectively it's almost like a life and death issue, not just for them and people they know, but for all of us effectively. So they'll be deeply committed across all aspects of their behavior. You get other people who want the reassurance of a structured framework where there's kind of a certified logo, which gives them peace of mind. Okay, this apple has met certain standards in the way it's been produced and treated and so on. And that's what I'm looking for. The thing is, as that progressed, it became a marketing device in its own right.
Yes.
Pretty much to the point where it's of less value now to the everyday consumer like us, because there's just so much going on. So I think there's now a third kind of category that has emerged, which is, so they're just everyday consumers that we just want to eat good, healthy food that has been produced and delivered to us in a way that has minimal impact on the environment. It's almost like an intent. It's like organic as an intent. so I know I'm not going to win every battle around those twin aims of really good, healthy food and minimizing impact on the environment. Sometimes I'm going to do things or buy things that are not aligned with those, and I don't feel great about that. But whether it's through convenience or speed or a lack of other options, you do what you got to do sometimes. But where I can, I will focus on achieving those two aims. And I think now a lot of people are in that space where it's just like, okay, there's so much noise out there. I just got to try and figure it out.
Right.
So, you know, again, this is when we go shopping, what we look for is, well, first of all, we're clear about what sort of things are important, what's important to us.
Right.
If you're not clear about that, you know, if you don't know where you're going, then any direction looks like the right one. So we're clear about that even before we set out. And that's just kind of an ongoing thing. Then we go to the right places where we're not constantly frustrated at a lack of what we're looking for. You learn through a bit of research, trial and error, word of mouth. You learn where to get the things that achieve whatever you want to achieve. You do a bit of research so that if you're looking for logos, for example, you know which logos satisfy your need. So it might come from a body that's in your home country because you know it, you trust it. Great. It might be a more globally recognized one. Whatever. Just because one sticks a logo on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So what logos do you look for, Richard? What according to you is reliable?
That's a good question, and I'm trying to come to terms with that myself, because I find myself often failing to be able to get to 100% organic. So a sticker, no matter where it comes from, if it says 100% organic, then that's kind of the top level of certification. But I also know it's hard to find. It's really expensive. It's not necessarily going to taste better than something that's not 100% organic. So what I would typically look for is something there's a range that is 70 to 95% organic.
Right.
Basically, what that means is 70 to 95% of the ingredients in that product must have been produced and handled in accordance with organic standards. So that's great. But then there's another level which is below 70%. You can still call the ingredients organic, but you just can't put a logo on it. Something else to bear in mind is if you're going to shop and there's kind of loose fruit and vegetables there, then there is no need for the retailer to put labels on every single individual piece. Sometimes the label just needs to be nearby. So, you know, I have to take my reading glasses when I go, because I know that I'm going to be looking at some details of things, and you got to be on the lookout for it. It's part of the reason why, for me, I'm more in the everyday kind of the pragmatic approach to it, rather than just looking at a label. But I also completely understand labels give people a sense of reassurance. That's fair enough.
Yeah. So we have another question from Athira here, where she's saying, again, she's going back to greenwashing, which is exactly what I was talking about earlier. A lot of products they claim that they are organically made. However, in reality, that's not the case. So how do we as consumers differentiate between the two?
Often, I don't think that we can, to be perfectly honest. You go to, well, let's put it this way. There is only one way to 100% guarantee you know everything that has been sprayed on or fed to or otherwise applied to a product, whether it is food, cosmetics, whatever else it is, and that is to make it yourself from start to finish. Now, maybe it's a bit harder to do with cosmetics, but to be fair, there are, my wife makes some of her own cosmetics as well as cleaning materials and so on. You just get the right ingredients, which can be kind of sourced the right way, and then you've got that control. But as soon as you buy something as a product, then you are relying on standards that a logo brings with it. And okay, to be fair, if you don't trust what a logo says, then you're going to have to come up with some other way yourself of getting a sense of, is it a product that you're comfortable with or not? And I think we can't always trust manufacturers and retailers and marketing departments to give us the unvarnished truth. And I don't mean that in a way critical of any of those parties. Everyone does what they need to, fair enough. But we're the ones who buy it and use it and eat it or wear it or kind of apply it, whatever. So it's up to us to, I think, take some responsibility for what it is that we're buying. If you don't really care about it, okay, that's fair enough. But if you do care about it, I think we need to learn, we need to research and educate ourselves about things. So if you buy your cosmetics, if you have a preferred brand, do some research on that brand and determine as best you can whether their commitment to organic goes further than putting a label, whether it actually, what are they doing? Maybe they are funding research or kind of community level programs. Maybe they are developing kind of their own level of standards that are in excess of kind of more generic standards. So I think it's consumer beware, and it means that we need to become more knowledgeable about how our products are actually produced and sent to us. Like I said earlier, you can manufacture something or grow something using like 100% organic techniques and then wrap it in plastic and send it on a big old cargo ship. And it is still organic as far as the standard goes, but does that make it a product that you're comfortable with? And only we ourselves individually, I think, can really answer that question.
Perfect. So in the interest of time, Richard, if in just 2 lines you had something to tell the audience about your last summarizing thoughts about organic and how they should interact with it.
Be knowledgeable, learn, and don't just take things at face value. And I think be clear about what is important to you, and then sometimes you'll be successful, sometimes less so, but at least you're moving in the right direction. And I think collectively there's a huge push for putting the power back in the hands of consumers around giving us access to products that we are comfortable with, not just at a price point, but the way that it was produced itself. When it comes to growing, I just want to say I'm so happy to hear about lots of people grow, one herb plant, that's fantastic. Grow a huge garden, that's amazing. Do whatever you can that is right for you. And, look for ways of making it easy and sustainable. And I mean sustainable in the sense of being able to keep it up. Don't just do something for a month and go, right, okay, well, I've done that project, now what? If it's going to mean something, it's got to be ongoing. Otherwise, it's kind of a temporary blip. So find ways of making it easy for yourself. It would be the same if we were talking about a dietary regime or an exercise routine or kind of meditation kind of a process. If you're going to stick at it, you've got to find ways of that fit into your lifestyle.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Richard. This has been absolutely great. Thank you so much for the audience for joining us. I think this session was really informative. I think organic is a little bit of the way we choose to interact about it. Like Richard said, it's really important for ourselves to figure out what our priorities are as consumers, educate ourselves about them, about the brands we're interacting with before we purchase. If you all have any questions, even after the session, feel free to email us. We'll definitely get Richard's point of view and pass it along. Um, and we continuously have these webinars ongoing. So we'd love to see you guys at our next webinar next month. Yeah.
Can I
Thank
just
you.
say, Namrata, just one last thing. I just want to say how much we like working with you guys and how much we appreciate how you are helping people to find easy ways of doing things. We're trying to do the same. If you wanted to learn a little bit more about options for growing at home indoors, then you can pop along to our website, hydro-art-pod.com. That's hydro-art-pod.com. And you know, if you think, actually, you know what, that's something that'll help me make a start, and you wanted to get going with a Hydro Art Pod, then we're delighted to offer as a Shift Eco special a discount of 20%. So, but you know, go and have a look. There are plenty of options around. Find something that works for you, and you know, let's do it. Let's join the move. Let's make it happen. Thank you so much for everyone for joining, and Namrata, thank you so much for you and the Shift Eco team for inviting me along today.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.